Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have Brad Sherman, founder of Sherman Wealth Management, on the show today. Brad started his career on the mortgage side of the business and through several job changes, slowly made his way over to financial planning. He ultimately made the decision to launch his own practice in 2013 with Lincoln Financial as his broker-dealer, and his wife was 36 weeks pregnant. You heard that right. We talked about the first year and the grind that he went through to build his practice with a young baby, and ultimately it just came down to hard work and a lot of effort. He ultimately broke away from the broker-dealer and formed his own RIA in 2015 and said his decision really came down to control over technology and marketing. His practice is growing and he's now looking to hire, so it was a great chance to hear about what all he's learned over the last 5 years of being in business and what he's working on now and looking into the future. This month's episodes are brought to you by AdvicePay, the first and only compliant payment processor built specifically for financial advisors. Manage and allow your clients to pay all of your one-time invoices and recurring fees via credit card or ACH. For the first time, advisors can have their clients paying monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually without having to log in and make payments every time. Multi-advisor firms can take advantage of the enterprise version, which allows the firm to manage payments and invoices across all of their advisors. All of this while never triggering custody. See it for yourself by signing up for a 14-day free trial of the platform at www.advicepay.com. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/161. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here is my interview with Brad. Hey, Brad, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, Alan, great to be here. Happy 4th of July.
Yes, we are recording this just after, so I guess this will go live here in a couple weeks. So to everyone, happy 4th of July belated. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the holiday break. Yeah, just to kick things off, could you give listeners and myself just sort of a broad overview of the firm, sort of where you're located, how many clients you have, maybe when you started the firm, and then we'll dig into the details of how all that progressed as we go.
Sure. Great. So my firm is based out of Gaithersburg, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., not too far from where I grew up, and started it April of 2013 under a corporate RIA structure through a broker-dealer, and then went full RIA in the fall of 2015. We have about 95 to 100 client relationships and about $38 million AUM.
So, all right. So let's just talk about that progression. So have you spent your career in financial services? I guess, how did you get into this business?
Sure. So, I was always really into money, entrepreneurship growing up. We talked about money. My mother was a math high school teacher. My father was is an attorney. And we used to talk about money and baseball cards and selling baseball cards. And I was really into baseball and statistics and just was really entrepreneurial. I sold oranges through an organization called Junior Achievement in junior high and sold baseball cards, as I mentioned, and then worked in retail sales, which I think gave me a really good start about understanding people and spending habits in high school, all through high school and college at a camera store, which processed film, believe it or not, which for half the audience is not going to understand what that actually is. But back in the day,
yeah, the Walmart and Kmart had the photo processing area,
right? Exactly.
They got that real estate back.
And this was a local company called Ritz Camera, which was in a mall locally, and it was a great way to learn about personal finance and talking to people about whatever they needed for vacations and things like that.
It's interesting. You say baseball cards. I think we've had a half dozen people on that have mentioned something like that as part of their childhood, of just like buying and selling something, whether it be baseball cards or coins or, stuff for Boy Scouts or whatever it is. I wonder how beneficial you feel like that was from your childhood in just building that confidence and just the ability to sell.
I think it's so important. And growing up, as we were talking about our kids, and I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and just instilling that confidence in talking to people. And both my grandfathers were, immigrants, and taught me, the value of being nice to everyone. And saying hi to everyone, and you never know, especially in this mall environment, who really had $1 million and who came in sweatpants or what have you, and who really had the money. And so, this whole millionaire next door concept of you never know who has money and who you should be nice to just resonated. And I was just nice to everyone. And then the baseball card thing was great because I always joke that I'm Jonah Hill's character in Moneyball and love statistics. And it was my first way to sell. And then, I had invested in the stock market as a kid. I annoyed for sure. My dad had a traditional stockbroker when I was in high school. He was extremely patient with me as we talked about my 15 shares of Viacom as MTV Spring Break came out. And I thought that, investing in things that I know and Peter Lynch and those types of things, and then using that money from selling baseball cards to invest and start was great for any young child who loves sports and wanted to learn about supply and demand. It was a real life situation because then those baseball cards fell out of favor, and it was an interesting concept in what people said the value of something was worth, and then until someone's actually willing to pay it, and it's a great lesson. And for all the DC sports fans, we have probably 100 Art Monk rookie cards and things like that and Cal Ripken and all these local celebrities that were key to my childhood. It was just fun. It was something my father and I did together, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I sold everything from rocks to knives to candy to, it's amazing when you look back. And I don't know if it's causation or correlation. I don't think my parents ever were like, hey, what can I do to get this kid to learn how to sell? But as a shy kid and as a bit of an introvert, it was helpful in just learning how to talk to people. And, that the message, you don't read off a script to sell, that the messaging is always catered to the person that you're talking to and what their needs are. And I think that's a struggle for folks that haven't sold or been through sales training and a good sales training course, that if you're reading off scripts or you've got your elevator pitch in your head, like that does not work.
Right.
So as parents, I hope we can instill that in our kids just because I think that's helpful across the board. But so when you went to college, what did you think you wanted to do?
I had no idea. In a very Ken Griffin style way, I was day trading in my college dorm room, taking the money that I had, kind of investing it. Not really sure. College was somewhat of a find yourself 4 years, but when I graduated, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And my stepmother was a realtor locally, and she introduced me to a mortgage professional that was very successful. And we interviewed and talked as I was graduating. And I always knew that I wanted to be in finance, and I always wanted to know that I wanted to be around people. So I became, for a year, his apprentice, and learned everything I could about personal finance, mortgages, all the structures around them, qualification and payment versus income. And I got to analyze, it was a great financial planning learning experience. I got to analyze bank statements and W-2 information and all these other things while learning from a guy that I really looked up to and admired, who was successful on that mortgage side.
So what time frame would this have been that you were in the mortgage business?
This was 2002. I lived at home for the first year after I graduated because my number one financial goal was to buy a condo in DC. So I lived at home with my mother for my first year and was working in a commission-only job, which is also foreign to some of the listeners, I'm sure, and just kind of grew my natural network and networked and talked to as many people as I could, and just really tried to understand early on, but now you'd call it behavioral finance, but just behaviors that people made and what their goals were and dreams, and help them kind of analyze credit reports and other things to help them live a better financial life. And so I did that from about for 2 years. And then I helped grow a local mortgage lender. I was a sales manager of a local mortgage lender and did capital markets and some other things for about 4 years while honing in on people skills and developing centers of influence, accountants, estates and trust attorneys, other people that were in a position to refer business to the firm.
So you've been in that same sort of local geography, it sounds like, most of your life.
My whole life, except for college, yes. I tried to beg my now wife to move to Chicago because she was in grad school around this time at Northwestern. She's a doctorate in physical therapy, but she wanted to move back home. So yeah, we have a local, really good, deep local network that I've been working with for quite some time, which is great.
So has the network that you've been building basically since you graduated, right? Like in the mortgage industry where it started, but has that network benefited you in the long run? Like, is it still benefiting you today? Some of those folks that you met, years ago?
Yeah, it's strange because I was in, so I'll finish up. I in the financial crisis, the company that I was working for ceased to exist. Nothing to do with, it just was coinciding around that time. And I decided that I want to go back to grad school, Billy Madison style, if you will, and get a master's in finance with a focus on quant. So I changed kind of the trajectory of my career, and the network helped me kind of do that. And that's how I kind of got into the financial planning business, is through networking and talking to some folks. So yeah, and then it's funny because now with clients at Sherman Wealth, some of these people that I met in my early 20s who I thought were really sharp on the accounting side or estates and trust side, I'm referring business to them and vice versa. So even though it's in a different field, they impressed me with their knowledge and I impressed them, I guess, with my knowledge of kind of the holistic financial planning kind of space.
So did you go through the CFP education at some point?
No, I need to. I think I do. I don't know. We could talk about that another time. I'm not a CFP. I was actually just in talks with maybe getting that started. I have a crazy life. I'm 38 and I have, as I mentioned, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And when we get into how the business started, there hasn't been any time yet, but I don't have the CFP education. I have, my years of saving, investing, and doing some other planning and modeling, but I have not taken the CFP exam. I have an MSF. So,
and a lot of folks don't have the CFP in financial planning. I mean, there's 285,000 financial advisors. I think there's about 80,000 CFPs.
Yep.
So, call it less than a third. How did you get the knowledge? So clearly you have investing knowledge because you grew up doing it, but like, how do you learn about estate planning and tax planning and all these topics that they teach in CFP school? Clearly you can learn it somewhere else. So I guess, how did you get that education for our folks that are like, I don't really want to get the CFP, but I feel like I need to know this stuff?
I think real life practice, like I said, learning the importance of saving at an early age, having that mindset from how I grew up, kind of talking about money. My mother was a school teacher and learning about her 403B annuity, which, we've found since I was kind of at the forefront of exposing some of that stuff to her and learned through that and got some clients that way. But Twitter and reading, I'm working, 70 hours a week reading mostly. I enjoy this stuff, a la Warren Buffett. I'm reading a lot and learning, and then also leveraging centers of influence and accountants that are local and estates and trust attorneys that are local to have financial literacy seminars and kind of learn from them in a couple of networking groups that we each kind of present a topic that's relevant. So, of course, the accountants and estates lawyers stole most of the show this year with things of education, with all those changes, which is great.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll take the coursework and exam. I'm not sure, but it's something I'm really passionate about, and kind of seeing my why is people in my life that have either been taken advantage of by financial institutions or weren't presented the opportunity that they should have. And I kind of understood that at a very young age and wanted to make that better.
Yeah, and I don't think the CFP by any means is the only way to get the education. That's why I was wondering, because obviously I went through it in college, so I got to cheat a little bit. But most advisors that got in this business didn't learn CFP education in college. So there's certainly places to learn it. I'll be interested if you do choose to go through the education to do a check-in and just see if you think it was helpful. Like, did you learn anything and learn something that's helpful? So one of the with any test, the CFP is going to teach you a lot of things that you don't actually use in your day-to-day life, right? Like I learned about grats and gruts, and I've never used one. I now know some cool acronyms though, and sound fancy in front of estate planners, right? But like you learn a lot of things, and you learn what's out there, and you can always go back and look at it. But there, I'd be interested to know how much of the education, if you choose to go back through it, is useful for your business. But
sure. I'm reading the books. I have some of the materials and reference it and also leverage my network for, like you said, those answers. If it's something that's complicated that I'm not doing every day, but, I'm on the line with the estates and trust attorneys, with the client, really holding their hand and making sure that there's no questions.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So what was it about financial planning that was interesting to you, I guess? What was it about this career or the conversations you were having that brought you over to this side?
Really analyzing, I got to see statements and people were referring me business from wirehouses and other things. And I got to kind of see what was going on. I understood after tax return and saving for a 401k very early. And like I said, for people who's watched, Seinfeld or, the company was designed of things that happened in my life. My brother, both my parents, my dad was a young aspiring attorney who in 2001, his stockbroker said that if you don't make your account above $500,000, they didn't want his quote unquote chump change, which was probably in the $200,000 to $250,000 range.
Right. I love those.
Yeah. And so that made me think like, holy cow, like there's this whole market of people who aren't getting serviced, are making great money, but the bigger firms just don't want them for capacity or scale or whatever it is.
Well, their fee structure, they can't make any money working with them.
Right.
And
exactly.
that's what, that was the impetus for XY Planning Network's business model in the first place. Was I got tired in my own business of people saying like, oh no, young people don't have any money. And it's like, no, they don't have any assets, but they do have income, just not the kind of money you can bill on.
Right. Exactly. And actually living this through my 20s, doing everything I was supposed to be doing on my own, maximizing 401ks, evaluating and then paying off student loan debt of my wife, from grad school and these types of things that I would be talking to my friends and other successful people that were my peers and asking them whom they worked with. And, they would say, and I would say, well, what are they offering for you? That's above and beyond asset management. And they would say nothing. And so it just kind of gave me an idea that got shelved for, 5 to 7 years or so, but it all worked out in the end. And then, I just being into it, reading and being a student of the game and understanding how interest rates worked and leveraging, whether it's credit card or your own credit to do certain things. I thought, people would want to know about it, need to know about it. Trying to help the little guy, in a sense, get ahead. I was very underserved, as you know, and continues to be underserved and continues to shock me every day when I see and hear about, things that go on. So
talk to me about the path that led you to ultimately launching the firm then. Sort of, did you work at a couple different firms or just sort of dive in head first?
Yeah. So I got connected through an estates and trust attorney of a guy who was local, who was a CFP, mostly did insurance and financial planning and didn't really have an option. As you know, most CFPs, either choose to outsource or don't do investment management. That's not in their number one wheelhouse. And it was a great idea on paper, connected with the local firm. I'd literally just gotten married and started grad school the next day. This is 2010.
You got married and started grad school the next day. That's awesome.
My wife is very, very patient and and the summer leading up to our wedding, I had to take 2 grad school classes. I was 30 years old and they said, if you want to get into this program, high math, high quant program, you need to take these 2 prerequisites. That's why I joked that I was Billy Madison. We had a wedding to kind of have in August, and I was taking 2 summer classes, working full time. And yeah, so I started grad school in the fall of 2010 and really learned about, early in the quant world, early in the behavioral finance world, just reading about mistakes people were making, and got connected with an affiliate of a broker dealer locally. And the idea is that I was going to manage the assets and learn about financial planning from him. And he had an SMA platform that he was referring business to. And I was just trying to build better tax efficient models for his clients that were cheaper for them. And that did not work out as well as anticipated and hoped by both of us. And my wife was 36 weeks pregnant in the spring of 2013. I had graduated from grad school, kind of finding out, DFA and trend following and momentum and some other stuff, and then honing in the financial planning skills. And we bought a townhouse and we were having a baby and disability insurance and life insurance and just going through that whole process kind of on my own without any financial advisor to help me, and just understood what that client journey should be like, I guess. And 36 weeks pregnant and my wife and I agreed to kind of just jump, and I had no clients and left this OSJ setup and tried to make it work with through Lincoln Financial.
36 weeks pregnant.
Yes.
Now that is,
yes.
My wife is, 39 weeks pregnant today. So any day now there will be a new little baby of XY, but that is not, that's go time. 36
go time.
weeks. Like
yes. I know.
They won't stop at time. So
right.
That's I guess why then and not wait a year? I mean, give yourself some time, have the baby settle in. I mean, why then instead of waiting? What drove that decision?
Because I always make things harder on myself. That the path easiest taken is not the one that I normally take. I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to build something different. I didn't understand really at that time. I understood it, but I couldn't get into the RIA kind of world. Met with someone at TD Ameritrade while I was kind of doing my due diligence. And he said, "Hey kid, sounds great. Talk to me when you have $15 million or whatever it is." I don't know. I wanted to be in control of, or at least what I thought, in control of the client journey and the client experience. So I just kind of went for it. I don't know. My wife was working. She was a recent grad of like I said, a physical therapist, and saved some money, to kind of try it out and see how it went.
So how did it go?
It went great. It's continued to be great. And we're in a hyper growth time now, which we'll talk about. But, besides me not being able to get out of bed for like the first week or so, just overwhelmed with what am I doing? I'm about to have like 14 life changes, like you said. And, being a new father, that was exciting and interesting at the same time. And then trying to do this. So I really talk about it as 2 babies at the same time that were kind of born based on years of thinking and figuring out a way that how financial advice should be delivered.
So talk to me about your decision to team up with Lincoln Financial. So I guess first, for just a quick education background for any of our listeners that have never gone the BD route, why do you sign up with a BD first off? Like, why would someone go that route?
Well, whom I was working with, my licenses were held. He was a Lincoln advisor, and so my licenses were held there. So I basically called them up because it wasn't working with where I was. And I just said, "Hey, look, if I leave where I'm at, what can you offer me?" And believe it or not, they hooked me up with a great group out of North Carolina that I can't give enough praise to and credit for helping me. But they just said, "Hey, call these people. They'll be your new OSJ and talk to them." So, it required all my licenses were already there. I was paying fees to Lincoln Financial through my previous kind of arrangement. So they just said, "You'll be a corporate RIA and under us." And I said, "Great. I just need to kind of sell and make relationships." So they provided with it.
So let's define OSJ, because a lot of folks have never worked in an OSJ, and I've only recently really begun to understand them. So what is an OSJ, and why did Lincoln send you to one instead of just you working with them directly?
I kind of forget. I don't think that you can work with Lincoln with the broker dealers directly at that time. I don't really know. I haven't followed up with it in years, but they said, okay, these people need to supervise everything you're doing, and there needs to be a separation between kind of church and state, if you will. And I don't even know.
Yeah, it's sort of an intermediary between the broker dealer and the end advisor. They basically take on supervision. What is it? Exactly. Office of Supervision Jurisdiction. Yeah. OSJ. I'm trying to think what it actually stands for, but
I think supervisory jurisdiction of so like all the paperwork would go through them first, and it was a really
compliance and all
very
that.
Compliant. Like, Twitter was launching, and I was trying to have a Sherman Wealth Twitter, and it wasn't, like I said, for the fault of they just weren't into it. It wasn't their thing. I was trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. They mostly had insurance advisors, and I was trying to do something new and creative under this kind of corporate RA structure. So all I did was really put my head down and sell for 18 months to 2 years. Like I said, had a network of people. My clients, I love them. I can't thank them enough. The original people that kind of signed on with me, or, I'm proverbial knocking on wood right now, but some of them have been with me from kind of the beginning. And then it was just 18 months of hard work and changes and getting to the goal of $15 million before TD said they would talk to me, and really just hustling as hard as I could. New baby, still very involved with planning and the markets, and just trying to figure it all out. Get to the $15 million goal was my only real focus at the time.
15 million. So where did you find success? So, you're new as a business owner, you're, out there grinding, you're a young guy. So it's not like you know hundreds of millionaires if you're like most of us. Yep. So like, where were you finding success in finding clients? Because you weren't just looking for a quick sale of a transaction. You were looking at the asset base and trying to build that.
Yeah. It was hard, for sure. It was very hard. I had, like I said, I can't thank my brother is 7 years younger than me. So at the time he was 24, 25, literally living this whole thing that I had just passed. He was in New York. He was, successful in his career. He was saving money. He introduced me to some folks. My natural network from the years of time and effort to get to know them and get to know, them and what they wanted. And then I had some really good old mortgage clients, believe it or not, who kind of followed me and started with me, whether that's slowly to give me a chance or, I don't know. I can't thank them enough for the early people that believed in me and understood that what the service and the other things that they were getting from their current place wasn't sufficient. Talking to them early on about ETFs and tax efficient and cost and those topics that are now, buzzwords and keys to financial planning discussions, weren't the case, 3 to 5 years ago. And most people who are brand new to the industry forget about that. And that was it. I was just, confident in myself, and then just worked as hard as I could to prove value and to make it happen.
So then what led sort of to the next changes? So you were with a broker dealer, you wanted to hit the 15 million. Why was there the drive to shift over to a TD Ameritrade or something like that instead of just staying focused on, where you were at?
Two main reasons: Riskalyze and social media and press and those types of things.
Riskalyze. I want to hear about this one.
Riskalyze. Yeah. We'll tease the Riskalyze, and then we'll talk about I had called the Wall Street Journal because I believed and still do, and I know you philosophically believe, but that fintech and the future of the advice is really tech heavy. So I kind of pitched the Wall Street Journal a story about me who was hustling and trying to use technology and some other things to make some things happen. And it got published and that was great. And then, compliance was not happy with me. And I was literally using hours and hours of the head of compliance, which I had a great relationship with. It wasn't his fault or anything. He was just doing his job about like all these tweets I was trying to send out. and just trying to, it was the early days of Hearsay Social, and they had just signed up with them. And it was just really hard. I felt like, to get business done. It was, backwards as it relates to, there was no DocuSign, or it was all paper. So I always joke that before I had a website and I was just out there with paper signing people up, it was easier than all the tech and stuff now. But that, the client experience and the client journey was always number one for me, and making sure that they had the tools and resources to be have the best outcome. So I had found out actually through Twitter about Riskalyze. They were first starting, and I said, I have to have this. I have to have this be part of my client experience. And, there was some corporate stuff going on behind the scenes that I really didn't want to get involved in, and just took a lot longer. Everything in that world just takes it's red tape. It's stuff that I've never experienced in my whole life. I've never worked for a large corporation in my life. So I just wasn't the right fit for me. They were super supportive to get me to the place where I needed to be. And we just kind of parted ways as friends, and I wasn't their ideal person, and it was all good. So we
fair enough.
We moved on from there, and kind of increased the tech and really the experience for the client through that transition, I felt. And I was also like finding out about fee only and what that meant, and the rampant conflicts, and I just didn't want to be any part of that. It's not that it's the right way, I think it's the right way to do things, but people, there's a million ways to skin a cat, and more power to everyone who does whatever they do, and it's all good. It just wasn't my thing. So I really wanted to be part of the fee only movement, and that was the reason. That was the drive.
So hopefully someone from Riskalyze hears this and they can use the tagline, Riskalyze stealing people from the broker-dealer world.
Well, in fairness, they're doing great, and I'm close with those guys, and they've signed up the broker-dealers now, and so they're crushing it on all cylinders. I just didn't want to wait for all that red tape. So sure.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And things just move slowly. I would say it's probably the most commonly cited reason why people, want to make that shift. It's painful to just feel like you're constantly pulling teeth to try to get certain things done. So,
and they were like, and rightfully so, which I understand, agree with. They're like, look, you've got $15 million. It's not, it's stop annoying us in a certain sense. So, we understand that you want to do this a certain way, but we're a successful corporation too. So, like I said, it was a great experience, a great learning experience. Everything that I've had has been a great way to the next step in the ladder.
So talk to me about the decision to, in opening up your own firm, because you did it without XYPN Network, because we sort of crossed paths in just after this. So were you able to bring clients with you? And I assume, because otherwise you wouldn't have left with the assets. So I guess, where did you sort of start with your firm?
So I started like in around that $13 to $15 million. I don't remember the exact number at the time, but I just had thought that it was just a great time to do it. I had accomplished kind of the goal, kept in touch with that. That's why I think the power of networking and the power of keeping in touch is so huge, but kept in touch with that TD rep. It's funny, when I left my job before I started this corporate RIA, my old boss gave me a TD Ameritrade wholesaler's number and was like, here, you're great for the RIA world. Call this guy and see what you can come up with. So even though we parted ways, he helped me out in that sense, and just was in talks, and they were super accommodating, and I had this great brand new employee who is a tech guy who I love like a son. He knows that, and he'll listen to this. So Josh, shout out to Josh. And we just worked really hard and repapered everyone, which is a nightmare.
Yep.
But it was worth it. And TD helped out a lot. And I kind of learned about Orion and those guys on my own. And we just kind of built this really tech focused machine through really Twitter and all the reading that I've been doing about the fintech space, and reading Michael's blog forever, even when it first started, and learning about Orion and learning about their partnership with TD Ameritrade, and so it was great. I got Orion for free the first year, which was amazing and really helped.
Yeah, because they have a deal with TD. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the clients, so the clients got on the Orion platform, and that was great. And just learning about DocuSign, and I love building. I'm a business type of guy, and so that puzzle really excited me, and putting all that together in a pure entrepreneur way and shaping the client experience. Really close with the guys at Orion, Jeff on the integrations team, and I've built together kind of like the ideal client experience, and we use a lot of data and analytics. I have an intern now who's a data analytics grad student who's helping me out, kind of talking about the clients and who they are and their preferences and all that stuff. So we deliver through tech kind of a really customized client journey based on surveys and other things that we do in-house.
So tell me a little bit about your fee structure and service model. Since you've lived in, several different corners of the industry, what have you settled in on is sort of the ideal fee structure for your client base?
I'm ever tinkering with that. Every day I wake up thinking about it. Right now we're 95% AUM. We have some clients that have come to us and I'm so excited about all the growth that we're having, because we have this new kind of line of 30-year-olds and things that are coming to us that don't have assets to manage. And so how do you price that? What's fair? What's reasonable? And so right now we've just been doing some work with them slowly as I kind of figure out if I really want to do that. But AUM only right now.
Okay. So do you have a minimum fee, or is it, sort of a target market that you're looking for?
That's been my number one struggle with the business, is what should the minimum fee be? Because I really want to help as many people as I can. And now I'm at 95 clients and kind of at capacity for myself, which is why I know this is a good buzz for people, but I'm hiring. I'm actively looking for the right person to help me take this thing to the next level. So,
all right. Well, anyone in Maryland,
anyone in Maryland, I feel like I could hire. Anyone who has a CFP who wants to, But yeah, so it's a struggle. I've taken on some clients that I saw. They were really great. I mean, I love all my clients. So the thing that I think you hit home with all the time, and for business owners or financial advisors to realize, is you have to really enjoy your clients. They want to be helped, and you want to help them. And you're going to get really deep in emotion and finance and all these different avenues of the plan. And you have to like each other. So for me, it's more about the fit and kind of what they're trying to do. And if they're, trying to increase their wealth and maximize, their daily steps and all that, then that's fine. So there's no minimum per se. We like to try and be in the $150,000 to $200,000, revenue. So about $15,000 to $2,000 a year, I guess is kind of where we've end up being, just based on their life events and things like that.
So what do you expect? I mean, you've been doing this a little while now, so you said you've been thinking about it. So, I mean, what is your expectation or ideas that you have around how to structure the fees? Because I know this is something that folks coming from AUM centric world or whatnot have struggled with, is, how to set the fee, how to structure it. So do you have any thoughts or ideas there, or it's still to be determined?
It's mostly to be determined. I mean, I just don't know, it flips on both sides. I mean, we have clients that are $200,000 or so who would be shunned by, parts of the XY community to not be able to help because they might not want to pay $4,500 or $5,000 a year for just a financial plan with no assets managed. So it's hard. It's a really, I think it's ever evolving, and I think the supply and demand curve is hard to say, but we have really happy clients. And so I don't know. I don't know where the next 100 clients, if they're going to be subscription model and that's a new line of business, or I think that the future is tied to the asset in some capacity, because people want to grow wealth eventually. But I'm really struggling with it, Alan. I guess that's why we're thinking on the fly. I have a couple of clients that, we accomplished their financial goals. They're buying a house for their family, and we did the right thing. And, they might not be clients anymore, not, or in the AUM model. So how do you service them, who are long-term clients that you've done really well for, executed on the financial plan, but then they have a different life event that, they may want to start their own business or something else. So it's been brought up to, as everything that I'm reading and ever evolving, it's something that's to be determined, and I'm toying in the back office, kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, no, and it'll be interesting to see where you land, because I know, clearly we have a lot of advisors that are executing on the fee for service model, but I think, I do think one of the biggest struggles for folks is going from selling investment management to selling financial planning, because I think a lot of folks are used to selling financial planning as a one-time event, as hey, you have this problem, we're going to solve it, and transitioning into that it's much broader than that there's going to be a lot of events over time, but being able to solve individual events over time is not the ideal relationship. It's not it's more transactional at that point than really relationships centric. And how to sell the value of, help you live your great life and peace of mind. And it's a tough thing to do. And it's one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of Nancy Blakey's Sales Pro Insider sales training course. So we've had her on the podcast a couple of times, and we put a lot of our team members here at XY through it, just because it helps to, similar at XY, right? We're selling more than just tech discounts, we're selling something broader than that. And so how do you describe that value to someone so they understand what the community is worth, and being able to interact with their peers and have a group of people that don't think they're crazy. I personally think that's one of the greatest benefits, is like having a group of advisors that aren't just like hounding you, like, what the heck? Like, what is this thing that you're building? And our group just sort of gets it. So, but those are intangibles. How do you value that? And how do you sell that to someone, and not just make it about, oh, you pay $400 and you get $407 worth of benefit? Yeah.
It's hard. Well, we're in the service business, so it's ever evolving, and I'm very happy, like I said, and thankful for the clients that have referred and get the value. So it's hard to, that's why we don't do much internet type marketing. We do a lot of local networking and other things, because it's hard to see the value of someone that you don't know, that you might just be doing a Google search off of, until you really understand the personality and what they're trying to do. We also have, I'm in a great market in this DC area, because there's a lot of people in this $3 to $5 million AUM range that I've gotten business from, and are friends of mine and are doing really good stuff. And then you have people that are still, severely overcharging that market. So I think that there's a lot of room for growth in this community, which is why I'm so excited about the future of this business. So I don't know how the pricing will end up, but I know that we love helping people and helping them preserve and increase their wealth and doing those things. So it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, I would say can be one of the more overwhelming parts of this business, is that you can truly help anyone, right? Like anyone that walks in your door, you can provide value, and making the decision on who am I going to help. Obviously, that's where niche market comes in, a target market, and who are you communicating with? Who are you the expert at serving? And that's where all that comes in, because as as most advisors know, dealing with helping a $5 million client is very different than helping a client that has $500,000 in student loan debt, but makes a ton of money as a doctor, versus a $50 million client. Like, you can't serve all three. Good luck serving two of them.
Right.
So you kind of got to decide what do you and what work do you enjoy, doing them, and what do you want to develop an expertise in over time?
Yep. Yeah. So we started doing that to try and service, along fees. We started this, financial literacy seminar kind of in the office space that we're in, called Beers with Brad. It's gotten really good kind of attendance on the local marketing side to figure that part out. So I'm trying to do two of the three that you just mentioned, the higher end.
So financial literacy, are you expecting that to lead to clients? Is that the goal, or is it more of a giving back pro bono type thing?
Well, I've been giving back pro bono type thing, doing financial literacy stuff since I started. It's kind of my why. It's like I said, my mother was a math teacher, and my parents got divorced, when I was 14 years old, and she didn't have anyone to really help her. And that's kind of how I got started, was kind of helping her and both my parents and my family, being the financial guru. But yeah, so I speak at American University, which is where I have my graduate degree and talk to the freshman business class, and then usually the seniors that are graduating. So I usually speak there twice a year, talk to them about financial literacy and what they're kind of trying to do. A lot of my friends in grad school were working for all these great DC firms, whether it's on the accounting side or Fannie Freddie, and they were really smart, obviously, but had no idea what a budget was or how to balance, their checkbook, or what a 401k or an HSA was. So, yeah, I think financial literacy is the why, and we've been getting clients from that, just being honest with these are the things you need to be thinking about, and either, I've gone through these, I've, purchased life insurance or purchased a house or had 2 kids, and these are the things that you need to be thinking about. And then we've been inviting local kind of other COIs to add their expertise too. So it's a great way for kind of people to learn about things that they don't know. And then I joined a networking group with people that are 10 years younger than me. So I feel very old, but talking to them about what they're experiencing in their late 20s as they're starting to make money, and kind of shaping that, and doing video and a lot of that content around what people don't know or understand. Because as money is severely anxiety provoking. It's probably all the data says is the number one reason that of divorce and arguments and things like that. And it's mostly based on communication. So studying all that behavioral psych stuff in grad school and merging that with the planning has been really successful, and kind of how we make sure that people are understanding kind of what we do. This industry is so confusing for people to understand, because you have so many different facets of, like you said, and it's been talked about a bunch of times, but insurance sales or asset management only, and very few people are doing holistic financial planning. So it's exciting, and what drives me every day, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard you mention your why before. So can you talk to me about that, and sort of where that came from, and how that affects sort of the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours, but my one grandfather used to teach me about saving, and kind of through what they did. They lived in New Jersey, and they were school teachers, and they were very, frugal about stuff, but yet they saved $300 a month to go to Atlantic City, which is a casino that people went to in the 80s, and is coming back. And I never understood why they spent $300 on the casino, but they taught me about money and savings and all that stuff. And then my other side of my grandfather died with no money, kind of was an immigrant, and I just really wanted to help the little guy, get ahead and understand credit and interest rates and saving, and even if it was $50 a month, that it was still going to add up to a lot of money, and to see the bigger picture. And my grandfather used to always say, like, life is built on the back of plotters. So just taking one day at a time, and not being overwhelmed with the financial world, whatever they don't, you don't understand. Cause, and then merging that with kind of my grad school experience, where you had, and the mortgages too, but you had lawyers, doctors, all these really sophisticated, really educated people who were in school for 19, 20 years, and they didn't take one course on how to budget, or one course on what a 401k is, or how to buy a house, or, how to invest money in the stock market, how to be an owner of a business, what that meant, and the tax benefits of doing that, and all these other things. So, when I see things, especially teachers getting ripped off by annuities and high fee stuff and all that stuff, where the actual consumer can never get ahead. I mean, that's what drives me, for sure. And then, conflicted advice is something that I'm trying to make sure people understand. And then with the death of the fiduciary rule and seeing how that unfolds, just kind of educating the consumer, because people don't understand that their really good friend from the country club really isn't a fiduciary to their accounts, that they may, be doing the right thing, but who knows?
Right. They may be, but they don't have to be. That's always my problem with it.
Exactly. So, helping people understand, like, what are you paying? What are you getting? All that stuff is really important to me. And it started with, like I said, my dad is a young lawyer and my mother is a school teacher. So, we fell into a couple of niches, which is great, and accumulated a bunch of different segments of clients, and seeing how that shapes the future is really exciting.
So you said a couple of niches. Can you talk to me about those?
Yeah, I went about it the complete opposite of how you and Michael, I know, describe it. So, but we fell into, I was through marketing and through just talking to a bunch of people. We have a lot of young folks who are between 30 and 45, I guess, who are just starting to make money. My exact persona, 2 kids or having their first child and really needing advice. And then we have these divorced and or widowed females who may have had a severe tragedy in their life or been divorced, which could be financial, big tragedy there too, and have never worked with money, never dealt with money before. They weren't the ones that were responsible for it. Very similar to my mother's experience. And they have their own careers and they're doing a bunch of things. So they just really need a hand to hold. And then I forget their names, but I was heard the other day that you had some guys on who did some technology restricted stock and things like that. So we've been doing a lot of that lately with a couple of companies that are local. And then we have these financial wellness packages that we're kind of rolling out in the fourth quarter of this year. And then 401k, I think, is everything I want to tackle by the end of this year. So,
yeah, that sort of segues into my next question, which is like, what are the big priorities? So the financial literacy program, you may be hiring, I guess, any other big priorities for the next, 6 to 12 months?
Well, I'm going to use my summer with Chloe, who's my intern, to just analyze consumer behavior and preference, kind of work with the team at Orion to continuously develop and integrations and things like that, and increase the client experience is the number one for me. Because I think what people forget is that we have great engaged clients, and without them, we wouldn't be where we are. So yeah, just growing into these different different avenues. So hiring and kind of revamping maybe a couple of the service models as the industry evolves, for sure. It's maybe 12 months to CFP. I don't know. I tend to take on more than I can. I'm working too much, so I got to maybe cut down on the hours. I don't know, Alan. You tell me. You're the master at this delegation, learning how to delegate better, I guess, yeah. And hiring.
Yeah.
Hiring. So
both are tough. I mean, and it depends on the type of business you're building, but it is tough to delegate, but so necessary if you want to grow the practice, because you can't do everything. And ultimately it just leads to too many hours worked and then burnout and not having fun anymore. And, you should be having fun as a business owner, and maybe not in the first year. There will be fun parts, but over time, every year should have more fun parts than the last is the goal. But
I agree. It's been fun. It's been a fun ride. And then, with the social media and video and how easy it is to do all this now. I'm older, so I have to learn some of this tech stuff, but it's very exciting to be able to communicate your message for a small business owner. The gap of the tech stack that I built with my firm between that and a wirehouse is, I'd say that a small RIA has a better client experience, has a better way to aggregate held away accounts and kind of see the full net worth. And that really excites me, because most people don't know what even they have, as from your experience in this business. And so just to be able to help someone, even if it's pro bono or whatever, just say, here's your personal financial statement. Like, you're in great shape, or, you need to work, like, or conversations and things that people don't do. People don't have time for. So it excites me every day, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was one of the highlights of me working with clients, was whenever we would show the net worth statement, because it was always better than they thought. And no one has ever looked at one, right? Like, unless you've worked with a planner, no one just like sits down and drafts up their own net worth statement. Even when you're getting a mortgage, you never see it in one place. And so just to show them, like, this is where you're at, like, you're doing awesome. And like, you're ahead of 97% of your peers for your age group, because you're 32 and have $300,000 saved or whatever. that was always a moment of like, oh, like no one's ever told our clients that they're doing good. And depending on your client, different situations, but for the most part, when they get to our office, like they've made some really good decisions and they're moving the right direction. And no one's ever told them that because all they see is, Instagram people, right, blowing money on stupid stuff. And so it's like, all right. But anyway, something to think about when you're working with your clients is take a minute to compliment them. I think that's a really powerful gesture that no one's typically done with them before.
I agree. It's a game changer for us because people don't, they don't get positive reinforcement at whatever they're doing, and they're not talking to their spouse or significant other or whomever, clergymen or whoever about financial topics. So they need us more than ever I always joke that it's more behavioral and psychological than it is money after, whatever the first 6 to 9 months of real hard work, because they want a shoulder to cry or lean on and they want to high five the wins with someone else. So for sure, I agree with you. I agree. And just that first step is so alleviating of the anxiety around money. Just to have that conversation, just to facilitate that is really special and something I don't take for granted and think it's really important.
So you've now been in business for 5 years or just shy of 5 years, and you've had, been sole RIA now for almost 3 years. So looking back, what are some of the, let's say 2 to 3 big learning moments that you can share with listeners that are approaching or in the middle of that, time frame where you've been? So what, I don't know, 2 to 3 big takeaways that you've learned that you want to be able to share with listeners. I
would say read and understand every kind of agreement that you're getting involved with before you do it, and that
yep.
People are not always as they may seem. So I'm a very trusting person, and just to make sure that alignments with the future goals are the same. That you're going to have lots of disappointment, wins and losses, and I think that graph that you guys share all the time, that iceberg or whatever of success is super true, and to not give up and to have a good network of people to support you, because this is something, as you said, which your organization supports, but you're on an island doing something that no one else is really doing. And you have to understand that as all the buzzwords that pass around, the consumer either doesn't understand that just quite yet, or doesn't really always care, and that shouldn't really get you discouraged from what you're trying to build. Eventually they'll understand and care. And the other thing is the power of networking is hard to underestimate, and compounding those, either that's dollars to start early, and save right away if you can, and to keep doing and keep going after it consistently. 1% greater per day really leads to long-term results, and to not get discouraged.
I love it. I couldn't agree more with all of those takeaways. And for the folks that, like I said, as you said, we tend to sign employment agreements without reading them, just because they're employment agreements, they're expected. But you need to know your long-term plans, and you need to have an escape route, because ultimately, we tend to change jobs. You will likely leave at some point. So just recognize that and be sure you have a way out that doesn't involve you not being able to work or getting sued if you try to work in your area. And, obviously every state's a little different, but well, awesome, Brad. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and sharing your sort of wisdom and expertise that you've learned over the last 5 years and what you've been up to.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on, Alan.
This month's episodes were brought to you by AdvicePay, the final piece of the puzzle of how to implement a fee-for-service financial planning program at your firm. Getting paid while avoiding custody is necessary to offer services to clients that don't yet have assets being managed by the firm. See it for yourself by signing up for a 14-day free trial of the platform at www.advicepay.com. Be sure to join our VIP community at XYPlanningNetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.